welcome back to part 2 of Game 10 of the AlphaGo series. Thanks for coming back, folks. Didn't mean to leave you hanging there yesterday, but as you can see, even the first half of this game was pretty hairy. We had a whole series of fights, and we broke at move 112. And Michael, I'm of course Chris Garlock here with Michael Redmond, 9-Down Professional. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning.
Okay, so why don't you just sort of remind us of where we are? This is move 112, and you were saying when we broke last night that you had done a whole lot of work on endgame, which is where this game should be going. But that's
yeah. Well, like we've gone through the whole course of a game with the new move in the lower right, and then this fight on the upper side and the right side. I would have been really scared in that fight on the right side, and then this fight on the lower side, which I sort of liked the way that White used nice Tsuji to get out of trouble. And now everything is alive. Like we have all these nice little territories that are relatively easy to count. At least White's territories are.
Right.
And it looks like Black is going to try to catch up in territory by surrounding the center. And so it looks like it could be a peaceful endgame. For people who don't really like endgames, it would be a relatively boring game. But it's not going to happen that way.
I was going to say, it's not going to be a boring game. It's going to be the exact opposite of a boring game. It's going to be a bit
unexpected.
All right, let's jump into it.
So let's just get into it. Black starts with this. Now, this is a really neat move in that you would usually expect Black to be playing when Black's trying to play a Kikashi against the lower left corner, a forcing move.
Sure.
And what you usually see is a Black player playing on the second line. And the idea behind this move is if White goes after that one Black stone, then Black can play all these forcing moves from outside. And already it's going to be difficult for White to get out into the center. But like if Black, even if Black plays a move here, it's a really ideal way for Black to close off the center. Black doesn't even need that final move, maybe. So that's the idea behind playing underneath. And White would probably just answer from the corner and play like this. So this is what you would expect to happen.
Right.
But actually, this little exchange on the left, as far as the endgame moves are concerned, it's probably better not to have it on the board. Like what Black does is Black plays here, and if we assume White plays here, then later on Black can play an in-game move here in some cases. So sometimes it's better not to have that exchange on the second line.
Okay.
And so this attachment on the fourth line is actually a very unusual move. I've seen Hoinbo Shua play it once or twice. Some of the great players in ancient times have played this move. This is where you would expect Black to be playing the attachment on the second line. And so it's slightly better, and it's a really neat move in that way. And so naturally, I'm expecting White to pull back here. Black will probably start to surround the territory in the center. And this is a point of the game where, as I was saying in the first part of this game, in the first video, it's a position where this move is really a very, very difficult choice for Black. But this is one suggestion I have for how Black might play. But if we have something like this, then of course this is going to be a problem here for Black. This P is threatening to push through at B, but it's also threatening to cut Black off, capture a few stones on the upper side with a play at C. And so this is the problem that we can see in this variation. We can see something like 25 points, Black building about 25 points in the center, but White's going to get something back on the upper side.
Yeah, I've been wondering about this. So that upper side, if what's at stake for Black in that upper side, how many points roughly? If White's able to
here and White plays here and Black plays here and White plays here, that's already gone. It's like this, so it's captured.
That's like 20 points, right?
It's about 20 points, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So that kind of wipes out what he picked up in the center.
Yes. So Black has to find something a little better than this. It would be a different variation, and I really, honestly, I have trouble finding a winning variation for Black, and I would like to see what AlphaGo planned to do. But it didn't happen that way.
So we don't have to worry about it.
I worry about it, but yeah,
I know
that's
you
one
do.
of the
I know
things
you
that kept
do.
me awake. Yeah.
When I say we,
But
I mean, you
it
know.
didn't happen. So this move already, it's a bit surprising, because when black plays here, this double clamp and white saves the corner territory. Now this is just locally, it's very, very painful for white.
Yeah.
And if black continues, now this is just, there's no way black could have gotten such a perfect shape here without cooperation with white. Like that A to B exchange is just terrible for white. It's a huge loss.
Is this the game?
So that's the reason that this move was surprising to me.
Okay.
Because once black plays this double skay here, this skay on the second line, it becomes really bad for white to do that locally. It's already very bad. But white didn't do that. So white plays here. Ki move. It's the ki move that people would like, but what happens is this happens. And so white has just lost about 20 points.
This is the game.
Yeah, this is the game.
Did you see this coming?
Definitely not. You know, it's hard to believe even now. White's lost 20 points. And all that I was saying about white having a lead in territory is gone now. Like, black has a lead in territory.
So why? Why would white possibly play like this?
Why? I'd like to ask AlphaGo, but you know, I can't at this point. So this is the variation that I'm suggesting is good for white. And if I did have access to AlphaGo, I would be having AlphaGo show me variations starting here, and I would be fiddling around with this until I was convinced, maybe. I think it could lead to some fairly close games. So I would really like to see how AlphaGo as black intends to proceed from this point.
Yeah, me too.
And yeah, it's very complicated endgame. Just some of those, that stuff I was showing in the upper left corner that could happen to black, and stuff that can happen in the upper right corner. The endgame sequences, they differ depending on the surrounding circumstances. And we're going to see a lot of that in the variations later too, but it's just a lot of complicated variations that could happen in the center. So white plays here and black plays the doubled skay. And so this is just completely outside of my imagination. I didn't imagine that anything like this would happen. And so we have to reevaluate the position.
Yeah.
So white has something like about 40 points now.
Okay.
Maybe not quite 40 points.
Maybe it was Christmas and white felt very generous about giving black a gift. Is that a possibility? Here, have 20 points.
Yeah. And so black has more than, well, more than 40 points. I would say that black has enough territory now to give Comey.
Wow.
And then black has, it still looks like some thickness there in the center, right? Offhand, right. I would say that black has a bit of thickness in the center.
I mean, compared to what he had before, not so much.
Yeah, but like if we say that black already has enough territory to give white Comey.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's
okay.
Yeah. And then maybe a bit of maybe something extra in the center.
Okay.
So I would say it's look good for black for now. So well, this move I sort of after this is a kind of a Tetsuji move. And it induces the cut here. So it's taking a local loss, but it does give white nice shape in the center. And it's actually setting up this move. So let's deal with this move. This is a really cool move because if black cuts here, white's going to play here. And now black has two ways to capture, but whatever black does, it's going to be a ko. Like if black plays this side. White plays here, and it's going to be a ko in a corner. So that's good for white. But the other way is worse. Like if black takes this side, now it's going to be a ko on the side. This is really very, very, very serious. This would be bad for black. And we can see it's an easy ko for white because it's not happening. That's not white's territory anymore. There was a time in the past I was calling it the white territory, but no. So this would be good. So black covers here. Now it still looks dangerous, but actually this is very safe for black now. For instance, if white can still try this Tisuji, but this time black just protects the corner, and so it's just that there's some black territory that is disappearing slightly, but actually black is gaining points in the corner. The black corner territory is increasing in this variation, so it's actually better for white just to leave it at this point, and white's gained a few points, reducing the side, so that's good enough for white. And so white, but as I was saying, black has about 20 points on the left side, more than 10 points in the lower right, less than 10 points in the upper right, and then a few points on the right side there, capturing the 2 stones. So that adds up to more than 20 points, and 20 points on the left side. So black has something like 45 points against white's something like 40 points. So it's black has just about enough to give Komi. Something close to Komi, plus what looks like some potential to get some extra territory in the center. So I'm thinking it looks good for black now, or at least a close game.
That's a huge difference from a few moves ago.
That's a huge difference. And so white plays here. So this is where the fighting starts.
That's what I've been looking at. Yeah, that is the only thing that makes sense for that white play, right, is to activate the Aji of that stone.
Well, it's sort of scary for white, too, because that white group in the lower left corner doesn't look like it's 100% alive yet.
Yeah, that's right.
It's actually pretty resilient, but there is some danger for white there. And there's also the fact that there's so many black stones in the center. You would sort of hesitate, I think, to play this move. But white has to start a fight here at this point.
Yeah.
And so this fight is, it sort of reminds me of fireworks. Because you know how fireworks, they shoot them up into the sky and they explode in the center. Yeah. Right. And so all of the action is going to be happening in the upper part of the center board. And it's going to be really surprising because this is like, it's a relatively small area we have open in the center here. It's just like,
not a lot of sky there for the fireworks.
Not a lot of sky, but it's all sorts of stuff is going to be happening. So black pushes out and escapes. So this is okay for black. Black's alive now, and it turns out the white group on the left is not gonna. It's not gonna die immediately. It looks like it's alive. I'm not true. It's not true when I say it's not gonna die because it's gonna die. But it's not.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
And so white starts again. So now this is the second firework, and black pushes through.
I have to put my other glasses on here because this is just oh my god. You have you have a lot of marked stones, my friend.
Yeah, I had fun. Are
these all the groups that are dead or dying, or what?
That's it. Yeah, I was counting the number of groups that are getting into trouble now, because just about everything.
1, 2.
I think I counted 10 groups.
3, 4, 5, 6. 7. How many?
10.
Oh my god.
Okay, let's start with this group on the left here.
Yeah, which was safe just for the record, that group on the left was safe as houses a few moves ago.
This group here on the left.
Yeah, there was no problem.
It has one eye here, and it's for the time being it's going to be okay. But there's some danger that eventually it's
totally surrounded.
It's surrounded, and it doesn't have 2 eyes to see. And there's some variations. There's some variations.
There's some Aji with that a possible connection under. There's a little eye, right? I mean,
that's the safety line that white has.
Okay.
And then there's this black group next to it. And black has to worry about the white pushing through here. So there's some issues with that. And I about this black group here on the upper side, I was talking about that earlier. There's some potential for white to cut it off. And then let's see. Let's take them one at a time. Let's take this white group on the lower side.
Okay.
This white group, it's sort of in combination with white's group on the left here. When this group gets into trouble, sometimes black will be playing a move somewhere around here to threaten white on the left.
Yeah.
something like this, or maybe something like this. And this can have an effect on white's group on the right. For the time being, it's okay, but there's some danger. And then it's pretty obvious that these groups in the center are in danger. So there's this group, and there's the black group next to it, and the white group next to it.
Maybe it would be simpler if you marked the groups that are not in danger.
There's less, yeah. There's this white group. That's alive pretty much throughout the game, yeah. And there's this white group, this black group.
Okay.
And I could talk about the left side, but pretty much
let's see what happens next.
Most of the time, the left side is alive. Yeah, there's the variations in which I killed the left side were so crazy that I think I deleted them.
Oh, really?
So we can say for most purposes, the left side is alive. So there's 3 living groups.
There are 3 living groups, and 10 groups that are conditionally.
Yeah, they depend. Like that group on the right, the white group on the right here. And let's just talk about that for a bit. There's this group here, which is pretty much alive now.
Pretty much.
Because of that's in the first video I was showing how it could live with that cut in the corner.
Right.
And so it's pretty safe. It's
pretty safe. It's pretty safe. You're not particularly worried about that one.
That will change too. Yeah. So that's there are variations where that group dies too. So there's all this stuff that can happen.
Just so folks understand how much you are. This is a game that you've been working on for how long now? Because I know we've been talking about this game for over a month.
Well, the games came out in May, right?
Yeah.
And first I spent, I think I spent about a month just getting familiar with all of the games, so going through all of the games.
Right.
I started actually making the commentaries, and usually I already have a lot of variations in most of the games.
Right.
But then actually go to make a commentary, I start adding variations and changing them and stuff like that. But this game, it took me weeks. Like I was working through it through the last 5 videos. I was spending most of the time on this game actually. Yeah.
No, because I remember around about game 5, you started warning me about game 10, which seemed like it was a long way away at the time, and I see now why you were warning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a tough game, and I've actually been changing the variations to the last minute, more or less. It's finding new moves all the time, and it's all happening in this. The center looks even smaller now, but there's also stuff that's going to happen. Right now, it's white's move, and the first question that I had is, what happens if white just continues to extend out into the center? Okay. It seems a very natural move. Like the last few moves, what white has been doing is white has been extending out in the center. Like white started extending out. So it would be natural to assume maybe white's going to extend again.
Sure, why not?
And this is a point where I had so many variations that I confused myself. So I deleted most of them. Like there's moves, there's like this move, which look really good.
I was just looking at that. Yeah, it looks good, right?
It looks good, but there's all sorts of subtle issues that I don't really want to get into right now.
Okay.
It's really, really dangerous. So I've chosen a relatively simple variation is this one, in which let's just get into it a little bit. I can't.
You can't resist. I can't resist. Let's just cat with a string, right?
When this kind of thing happens, we can see white is connecting up to the lower left side. Right. And so this variation, although it's not completely correct, is a kind of an example of a case in which this exchange here is going to be bad for black. Because without that exchange, black can just push through and win the semi. But with this exchange here, black is giving white an opportunity to connect to the lower left corner.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why the move that I ultimately chose, this move, is better because it's trying to do the same thing without playing that exchange. Like this would be Even if black just pushed through this way, black would be able to capture the white group. There's a little bit of an issue with this forcing move that white can use, and it would still be a close game to capture the upper side on a large
a trade, right?
Potential trade. And I had all these variations where black tries to refute that with moves like this. And strong players could have fun trying to work it out, but it just gets extremely complicated. And the end result is it's not very good for black. Or at least my end result is. So I chose this move. This is relatively simple in that it takes away white's options on the left side of this stone that I was showing you. This is not going to work so well. So white plays on this side. White can cut black off. And this actually is going to turn into a seki here. And black pushes through here to achieve the seki. And we get back to the stuff I was talking about in the upper left corner, where white had all these forcing moves to try to cut at B. That cut at B has disappeared now.
That's right.
So that's really important. And we can still see that white's still cut off in the center. So white has to do this. And you remember I was sort of worried about that black group on the right side. Now it's alive because black has this potential eye. And black can take Sente to play the final big endgame move. And the fact that, let's just mark it once more. At this point, let's just leave it at this point. And I'm going to mark this cut again. The fact that this cut has become impossible for white, it really changes how the endgame deals out on the left side here. It gives black a lot more freedom.
Sure.
And that makes the difference, basically. The fact that black is alive on the right side, the center is the seki. So all of what I was calling potential black territory in the center has disappeared, more or less. But in return, black has this thick shape on the left part of the center. And black had Sente to play that big endgame move on the left side. And I'm calling this a win for black.
Yeah, I haven't counted, but this just looks too good. I mean, with black getting that last move, that seems to kind of put it in the bank.
Yeah, that's right. And there's so many variations, I have trouble getting back to the main variation. So that sort of explains that white cannot extend here. It would be too much trouble for white on the left side.
Okay.
Plays here. This is actually, I think it's a good move. And on the right side there, those three white stones are okay for the time being. Like if black plays here. Now, actually, this is one of the variations that I tried to work out. I don't think I left the whole variation in. But the endgame is going to look something like this. And now you can see black is a bit more cramped on the left side.
Sure.
This diagonal move that black just played is a way that black can handle all of that aji with moves around here. So this is a way that black can solve that problem. And this is going to be a close game. And I have the feeling that it's going to be the closest margin. It's going to be a half-pointer.
Really?
And so I don't really know which side is going to win. Just to give context, in the actual game, black ended up losing by half a point.
Wow.
So, you know, if I was a genius at endgame, maybe I could find a half-point win for black in this variation, but I'm not really confident that I could. So it's going to be a half-point difference, maybe. It's going to be a very close game. So that's something that black could have done. Like, black could have played here, and it would have led to a very close game. But I don't really know which side is going to win.
A quick question, you know, with you know, two human players with a game this complicated. I mean, you've had, you know, a long time, months now, actually. I mean, since you first saw this game, right? But sort of imagine, you know, that this position. Hey, there we are. There we are.
You couldn't decide whether you wanted to come up or not.
He's like, it's gotten so complicated. You need some canine assistance.
So that's Choco. Okay.
Choco.
That's the dog for the day.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to the game. So this would have been close. I think actually, I don't know how accurate AlphaGo is in evaluating these positions.
I guess that's what I was getting at.
I just don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if AlphaGo is pretty good, actually.
Okay.
So maybe AlphaGo decided it wasn't good enough.
Okay. All right.
So black pulls back. That's the other move. This is the move that I would want to play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, we have a problem because the first idea is that why not extend here?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't even think of a different move.
No. I mean, it's you got to move, right? It's
right. Yeah. It didn't happen.
Get out.
So black pushes. And we can see that the black group here has a lot of liberties. I can count 6 inside.
6, 7. Yeah.
So white has to extend. I'm having white play the Atari first. So white can escape out to the right. And black will cut here. And at this point, black's group is connected already. Like if white connects against this, black has a forcing move here. And that will just connect black with Sente.
Yeah. Because
if white connects there, this is connecting on the third line is bad for white because black has this Tesuji here.
Ooh.
That would be really bad.
Oh my gosh.
So this would end with Sente for black. And it's really bad if white ends in Gote because black gets this in the center. So this would be a collapse for white. So white has to get back to that point. So when black cuts here, it turns out white needs to protect in the center here.
Wow.
So I suppose you follow. So black gets
yeah.
And now black's going to continue like this. Now, getting this, capturing this stone in the center is putting a bit of pressure on white on the lower side.
Yeah, I'm just trying to read that. I mean, it looks like white will live, but he's going to lose a lot of points, right?
Well, with the trouble that white's going to have on the left side too, if black plays first in this area, it's going to be difficult. So white really needs to connect underneath.
Oh, okay.
And then black just plays here. And so again, we see that black is captured at A, giving black a very thick shape. And this is going to change a lot of things. It's going to change what happens in the upper right corner because all of black's stones are connected up now. It means that white's not going to be able to play endgame moves aggressively in the upper right corner. And we're going to see all sorts of very dangerous stuff happening in the upper right corner in the actual game.
Mm-hmm.
It's an area where in some variations white can play very aggressively, but in this variation, looks like black has close to 10 points in the upper right corner. So that capture at A is making a big difference in the upper right corner territory. And finally, black connects here. That takes away the danger that black was having on the upper side with white moves. This. And so everything is settled, and black has a slight lead. This would be good for black.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is great for black. This is,
Well, it's working out. So this is a variation where I see it's good for black. And so it's maybe an explanation as to why white didn't run away with the stones here. But it makes me feel that at this point, I think the game is good for black if white cannot play this move.
Mm.
And white plays here. And this is a point where I became completely confused.
Because I have no idea what that is about.
Okay. Well, there's one explanation is, what if black plays here?
Okay.
This is bad for black. Because if black plays there, now white runs out. Okay, let's forget that variation for the time being. White runs out, and usually black's going to push through here, right?
Sure.
Now, that black move here was wasted. That was This was showing you a different variation where black took that stone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is really bad for black. Because black did not capture that stone. That means those black stones in the center there are in trouble.
In big trouble. They don't even have a single eye, and I don't. Yeah, no, they're in trouble. Wow.
If white plays at A next, they're going to die. And maybe in a different variation, I'll be able to show you what happens if black plays first. It's pretty exciting with black playing first, too.
Can black get away?
It turns into a seki or a ko. So black can save those stones, but you have to remember that black's in trouble on the right side, too.
That group that you've been worried about, right?
Right. I keep having these images of that black group being captured and taken off the board for some reason.
What happens if white just descends at B?
It's dead.
Yeah.
So that's a demonstration of why black cannot play that marked move.
Gotcha. Okay, all
right. However, and this is a problem that I haven't really resolved, but I'm going to go ahead and say that this is a win for black. And I'm sort of looking for AlphaGo to refute that, because at this point we don't really get any information about what the networks are saying.
Right.
But I just can't find any way for white to win this game. Like I would expect white to be playing the extension here, and black adds a stone to the upper side. So this is big. And then let's see, if white pushes through here, this is something you have to be worried about. But actually, this move here that black has played in the center is getting rid of all of the dodgy of this stone. Because if white plays here, black can cover, white cuts. And first of all, this Atari is sente. And it's really important that black has won the semi in the center, because black needs to have this Atari is sente. So black needs to have a living group on the other side to connect up to. So white connects here, after which black plays here. And maybe you see it coming now. After this, it's relatively easy for black. Like white can play this forcing move, but white still has some weakness in the center. So there's two variations for white. White can try to enclose black, or white can try to kill. So if white tries to kill, black just plays an Atari here, here, and this is where you start you start seeing bright spots or something, because it looks like it's a seki. But actually,
I need a different pair of glasses that I don't even own.
It looks like it's a seki, but
it looks like a seki, but it's not a seki. It's a seki that's not a seki.
Black can play at B and C later and capture those 3 stones. So it's a kind of a temporary seki that white has. But black's going to come from behind with B and C and capture those white stones before white can capture black's group on the lower left.
And then white's just dead everywhere. I mean, yeah.
So that's a failure for white. So let's say instead of this move, this led to that. So let's say white plays from the outside. If white plays from the outside, now white's corner group it's going to die, or black's going to live. Like if white tries to kill black, it has to be this way. But black's going to win the semi-I very easily. Like black it's not really what we would call a semi-I, because black has too much of an advantage. It's a big I against a small I too.
Yeah. So, that's just not on.
Yeah. And so that's sort of my demonstration of why trying to cut here is not going to work. And so we can have white sort of playing a more peaceful endgame, which would be something like this.
Does white have enough points?
And my conclusion is that the answer to that is no. White does not have enough points. The center is too big for black. This is going to be a fairly close game. And I think in the SGF, maybe I said it was about 10 points for black.
Okay.
Before Komi, that is. And it could be a point or so closer, but I think black's going to win. So it could actually be a fairly close game. So with some slight variations to this, we could get a very, very close game. But for this time, I'm going to say that black wins. And we'll just have to wait for AlphaGo to tell us why it chose that variation. Because as to variations that I can show you, I would say that the black wins with this move. And let's see. Let's leave it at there. There was a variation where I tried to kill the right side.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
You remember that?
I
This
do.
one.
Yeah, yeah.
It's when black
Yeah,
plays here, and I was telling you when white extends out, white
yeah.
can connect to the
Yeah,
right
yeah.
side, and black plays here and tries to kill the right side.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to work
Yeah.
because white can still cut at B, and it's going to be a lot of trouble. Like if black plays from above, there's this variation again, and we went through the first video. Actually.
We did. Yeah, to crash. Yeah.
And then there's if black plays from underneath. If black plays from this side, wow, there's this one too. This is fun because white gets to turn around here, and white's going to get some extra liberties. Like white can capture the one stone and win the semi here.
Wow.
Or if black, when white plays here, if black plays an Atari from above, white can just connect underneath. So
right.
White can either. And so it's just not working for black.
I'm very confused because, you know, at a certain point, you know, white just had a really good game, and it all went sideways in that left corner when white played, you know, this very unusual move and gave black the entire left corner. And I'm still having trouble understanding why white would do that. What's the I don't
this, right?
Yeah, I don't
mystery. Well, I would say that at this point, if white plays this move, it's going to be a fairly close game.
I mean,
well, you know, AlphaGo, maybe it found a variation which looked like a half-point win for black or something like that. And a win is a win, and a loss is a loss. It doesn't care whether it loses by 30 points or half a point. It really doesn't differentiate between a big difference and a small difference.
Mm-hmm.
So if we assume that AlphaGo thought this was bad for white, even if it was a very close game, then that could be a valid reason for it to play this crazy fight here. So,
yeah, but the second, well, I mean, you showed what, yeah, okay, all right.
I'm not agreeing with the move. I think that
no, I know.
This would have been good enough for white, if you ask me.
And even the next move, yeah, after the clamp.
I would not choose this one. I would not choose it. This is just too painful.
This is too painful. Yeah.
This is. I would assume that white's going to lose now, even if black doesn't play B. Black would have a lot of choices with B. It would be difficult to say.
Just too much in the center now, right?
So to get back to the game, I'm going to say that black wins when black plays here. But black didn't do that.
You think that puts it, that just finishes it?
Well, it's going to be an endgame. It's going to be
right.
Very complicated endgame. As far as I can tell, black seems to have a lead.
Okay, so black doesn't play there.
Yeah, black doesn't. And what's this move?
Killing.
Forcing.
It's not forcing just the white group.
It's not threatening to kill the white group because let's go into that. White plays one forcing move here, and then plays away. Obviously, it's a big move, right?
Yeah.
Let's have black try to kill the white group.
That's.
Would you want to play here, maybe? That's the game move. Sorry, that's the game move. That's where black played. Any other suggestions? Black has to get rid of that eye.
Yeah. Because it already has one eye. Absolutely, yeah.
So locally, white can live. You can find this in Smigo problems and Tessiju problems.
Yeah.
But actually, if you look at the whole board position, it might be a bad idea. Because it's going to have a bad effect on white on the lower side. And if you just assume that this position in the center is going to be at least a seki for black. Oh, well. I made the variation. I might as well show it. This is a seki in the center, unless black starts to ko. And so we have this position. All this stuff happening. This is going to be another endgame. But
get away from it.
There's the variation here. The one that's more important is what happens if white plays here and tries to kill the right side.
Yeah.
This is the one that's important. What happens if black is that black can play here, and this is threatening a snapback to capture those two stones.
Yeah.
White plays here.
Yeah.
And we have this fight developing in the lower side.
No.
Black's going to win this fight to capture.
Yeah.
And I just went on to the end here just to make it simple.
Why not? Why not? Is it even close?
It's Atari now, so it's a 1 move difference.
1 move difference. Okay. All right.
And you know, it was interesting because it would have been a lot easier for black to win that semi if black had forced with this move earlier. But this move is when white answers here, black's losing a point or so.
Okay.
In the endgame variation, that's pretty important. So that's why I didn't play that exchange. But black wins by one move anyway. So this is an example of what white doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
So actually, although white can live when black plays here, maybe it's not a good idea. Like this would lead to the endgame variation, which is actually pretty close. And it's another very, very close game. Like, let's go into the endgame variation. You look confused.
No. It's just.
Since white cannot do that, white would be playing this one. And it would be, this is really complicated because it's a seki, but it's also, it's a seki, but it's a seki that could be a ko too. And what I'm saying, white has to play here to make it a seki.
Okay.
Otherwise, like if white plays this way, black would win the semi. Black would still have 2 outside liberties. So white plays here to make a seki. And if black plays here, it will be a seki. Because there's 3 liberties inside. So that's okay. Of course, this is an opportunity for black to make a ko out of it.
Right.
So this would be the ko variation, and there's all these complications, and they're all pretty close. So my answer to that is that I just don't know. I think I made a guess in the SGF. We'll leave it there. So back to the actual game, black plays here, and white has the opportunity to live, but didn't play there. White played here. So it looks like white has captured this marked group.
Yeah, what about the group on the right?
What about the group on the right? That's the problem. Black plays here. Now the whole lower left area it's a dead white group.
Sure. Yeah.
That's huge.
It's just done. It's dead.
If it's just a trade with the black groups and the black stones in the center, that would be great for black. But now white goes after the black group on the right.
Of course. Yes.
Now I've marked 2 white stones. What I'm trying to say is that black has an easy way to capture those 2 stones. That would be to play here and here, and white cuts. So this would be the simple variation, but this is just not good enough for black. This would be a white dead group in the lower left and 2 black groups on the right. Like there's that black group on the center and the black group on the right side. This trade would lead to it would be close before komi. So white would win by several points. White would win by komi. So black cannot do that. And it sort of looks hopeless, but black finds a way to make it really, really interesting. Because black starts with this.
Okay.
And again, I should show you the snapback variation. Like if white plays something on the outside, black can play here and then just throw in here.
Right.
And so that's a kind of a snapback-like position.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. And so white can't do that. White connects, so white prevents that. And then black plays here. Now this starts something completely different. Black is trying to escape with the stones in the center. And if black can save these stones in the center, then white will have to worry about white's group on the lower side. So it could be turning into a semi. So that's what is the general story here is that it's developing into a potential semi. So white covers and black pushes through. So black is trying to set up a semi with that marked group that I've put 3 marks on. White extends here, and black plays here. Now this is a really sharp move. The whole idea here is that if black would like to play here, and if black can get 2 moves here, obviously black will have a living shape. So black is trying to get this move in as a forcing move. And actually, it seems that there's some potential to play here immediately, but for the time being, white's just going to play an Atari, and it doesn't work yet. And this is the variation that I was actually looking at. But it doesn't quite work. Like if black plays here and here, then white gets this cut with a Atari. And so it's actually a negative effect. Starting with that cut has allowed white to play this move as an Atari. And so this is just, if black answers here, white pushes through or something. This is just a collapse.
Yeah, it's just a collapse. Yeah, it's just done. Yeah.
And so, so that one didn't quite work. So black starts with this, and the idea is if white clasps the stone, now black can play this forcing move. And now that's going to work. It's alive, right? So that's
it is live. It is. It's very clever. It's beautiful.
So this move, it looked nice, but it didn't quite work. There's some other variations to that, but I'll leave it there. So black
no, that's very clever. I like that.
And white connects. So that's refusing to allow black to live. Black pushes against here. Now this is threatening the wedge on the right. Like if white plays, black's threatening to cut white off there. So you would sort of expect white to connect there. But that would be bad for white because of the center here. Black would cut white off, and we would have a semi developing. And looking at the semi, the black group in the center there, it has, let's use the marking tool just so people can understand what's going on. Black has 4 liberties here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
4 liberties.
Yep.
So looking at the white group, white has 4 liberties. So it's white's turn. So white can win the semi. But black has enough room to live now. Black's getting an extra eye.
Nice. Squeezed an eye out.
Right. So that would be a win for black. And so, but of course, if white just plays some random move, then black's going to wedge there and cut those stones off. So, like we could do something stupid for white and illustrate that point. Like if white plays there.
Yeah.
And that's a win for black.
Pretty.
So. And I'm still adding variations here. It's maddening.
I'm serious. You know, this is our 10th game, and we do not have one complaint about too many variations. In fact, there's probably some complaints about not enough variations. I'll have to go back and look. You know, for our Q&A.
So white has gotten rid of the threat of a black play at B and a black play at A with this wedge. So I was showing you white playing here, and this worked for black. It made a semi to make an eye. Or if white plays here, then black can play here to cut those 3 stones off. So it's one or the other. This move solves both problems. But white still has to worry about that wedge at A. So black pushes against here. And an example of that would be, for instance, white backing up here. This move would then be a double threat, threatening that wedge on the right, as well as a semi in the center. So it would be the same story. If white plays on this side, black can connect here. And again, white will win by 1 move, maybe, but black would have no trouble making a life in the center.
Which is all black needs to do, is make the life.
Living with that side, black group on the right side would be an easy win for black.
Yeah.
So white
is a little busy.
White is busy. White can play from the outside here and cut black off. But the timing of what black is doing is very important because it was only now that this was that double threat of the wedge in the upper right and the center. So white has to play this way.
Right.
Right, like this.
Yep.
This. And now black can play the connection. So if black had played this connection too early, then that double threat I was talking about would have disappeared. Now white has to save the 3 stones. So white plays here. And we can see the upper right corner looking in a bit of trouble right now.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just dead if white plays first. And it's going to be pushed around a little bit when black plays first too. And so now black cuts here. And so all of this stuff has happened, and we see the marked group, it's coming back to life.
It's Vampire Go.
White cannot connect against this Atari. If white, let's just add that variation too. If white connects, black connects. Now black's going to even win the semi. So this is just bad for white. So white has to cut. And here and here. So it's the order here didn't really matter. White could have played that move like this. It would have been the same thing. Same thing. And so white saves the center group. And this is an opportunity for black to capture some white stones in the center. But we can see that also it's so bad in the upper right corner that that's
now the upper right corner is a disaster.
So black goes after the semi.
Sure, of course.
This is going to be a 1 move difference, so it's a real semi. It's a big gain for white to be able to get this exchange in, because now that shape in the center is a seki. So these are 2 groups that in the end didn't die. They turned into a seki. Have a dead group in the lower left corner and a dead group on the right side. And this semi on the right, it's actually pretty touch and go, because there is some potential for black. Black does have an eye, and white's going to have an eye too. But there's this capture here that black has potentially. And capturing that 1 stone on the right, this stone here, capturing that stone would give black an eye with a ko attached. If black has a ko attached to the eye, then it's not going to be a straight out. It's not going to be a loss for black. So at some point, black would like to be able to capture that stone. And so we see the meaning of black playing this exchange here earlier was to be able to have that Atari there. Without that exchange, it would have been a different story.
Wow.
So there's all this very, it's a perfect sequence. There's no mistakes in this sequence at all. It's very exciting.
It's really quite brilliant.
And so white makes an eye on the side, and this is an eye. This is an eye that would get bigger. Like if black played, let's see, let's do a variation for black. This one, if black does this, black can actually get the ko. So black has an eye plus the ko, but when white plays here, white's going to get a big eye. Like that. This gives white a few extra liberties. And so, although it's going to be a ko eventually, it's not going to be a very good ko for black. Like it's going to be a ko in which white will be able to take the ko every time, and black doesn't have enough ko threats for it. And going back to this move, what's really exciting is when black plays here, white gets to connect underneath here, and this would just give white a group with 2 eyes. So this would be a complete collapse for black.
Yep. Nice.
So going back to the game, black plays the honey underneath, and white makes an eye here. This is a very solid move. It simplifies things a little bit. This is extending.
Wow.
And now it's going to be a straightforward semi. So white connects here, and at this point, black is behind 1 move. White's going to win by 1 move. Maybe I put a in front. Oh no, not that one. We could fill the liberties just to put people at ease.
I don't think ease is necessarily on the menu, but to answer the question, it's just a little short, isn't it?
And we can see that it took black some time to get to this point, to put these stones in Atari here. And so white's 1 move ahead.
Wow.
So white wins the semi. So this is what I was dreaming about and when I was awake at night.
Yeah, that totally, yeah.
So at this point, there's no hope for black. And so the right side group has died. The center is turned into a seki. The lower left is dead. The white group is dead. And so what's happening? What's happening with the game? It's actually very close.
You tell me, boss. It's very, very close. It's close.
It's very, very close. And I was looking at maybe black plays here, but then white plays here. And this is a really sharp move. Like if black plays here, white's going to cover on the second line. And well, something like this. This is a bit painful for black because black has to back off like this. And then white starts this sequence on the left. And this is probably going to be a win for white, maybe 1.5 points or something. It's actually maybe slightly better for black to play here when white plays the peep here.
Sure.
And then white just gets the 2 stones. And this is, again, it's the same story. And I'm going to go into this stuff that's going to happen on the upper side. I'm going to go into it in more detail in the actual game.
Okay.
Because it's interesting, but I don't want to be going into it several times. So what black did was black played the knight's move. And I guess this is the better move. But there's going to be something that white does with an attachment at A that's going to be really neat later in the game. So white plays this move. Now, first of all, it looks like black can capture the stone.
It does.
When black does that, white's going to play the kick here, the kosumitsuke.
Sure.
The left side territory is really big, right? So black would want to try to save it.
Yeah.
But now this is going to be a double threat with A and B. So this is just a collapse for black.
Man.
And so black gets, this is really annoying for black. There's no way for black
to give up a little. It has to give up some.
Something like this would just be too much profit for white. Well, that's not a variation that black can take. So, by the way, I was talking about moves like this earlier in the game.
Yeah.
But we can see that the way the left side is developed, this is just not, it's not even a forcing move.
Right.
There's no cut there anymore. So it's interesting to see how the move that white chooses has changed. It's changed to this attachment combined with the kick here, the kosumitsuke.
It's a good lesson to remind folks that just because something worked before does not necessarily mean it still works.
Especially in an AlphaGo game.
Especially in an AlphaGo game.
And what's happening with this kick here is that if black plays the normal endgame move, white can just cut here.
Yeah.
And there's no geta there. Like you might think black has a geta, but it just is not working. So there's no way for black to capture that marked stone, so the whole upper side dies.
Game over.
So when white plays this kick here, black has to play here. Like black could play any move to connect the upper side, but it's just too painful to allow this. So this is the only option that black has to protect both the left side territory and the marked group. So white plays here. Again, this is forcing. And white is getting a very nice shape there on the left side. Everything is connected up with a nice shape. And we can see that there's some potential. Let's just use a marker here. There's some potential here. And white can still cut off one stone. And that's about 10 points. That's a 10-point endgame move. It's a very big endgame move. And it's going to change the way the endgame continues. And black connects. Black has to connect here.
Yeah,
so
finally,
played this exchange with Sente, and white has gotten as much profit as you could hope for on the left side.
I would say,
and at the same time, has set up that cut on the upper side. But white doesn't play at A. Playing at A is premature. The hana here is bigger. Just because if white played at A, if white played this big move on the upper side, black would then play the big move on. This is what you call a double forcing move, a double sente move. This would be a huge endgame move. And in this case, this is bigger. Black would win in this case.
Wow.
So white plays the hane. And this is usually a forcing move, but like if black answers white here, then white will get A also. So black ignores it and starts the semi-I here. And so this is the same idea I was showing you before. White's going to win by 1 move. So naturally, white plays away.
Naturally.
Naturally, yeah. So if black plays A, it's going to be a ko to save the black rook. But right now, black doesn't have time to do that. And if we look at the whole board position, there's no black co-threats to speak of, really. And white has these huge co-threats in the lower left corner. That's why I have a marker for C. If black does start the ko on the right side with a play at A, that's going to be a seki at the best. So black can win the ko at B to make a seki out of that position. So we would have 2 sekis right next to each other.
Wow.
But white has these huge ko-threats at C. And it's going to be a number of ko-threats. White has about 4 ko-threats there. And so this means that black cannot start the ko at this time. So black answers white's move. And we're thinking that maybe black's lost some territory there. How big would you say that black territory is in the upper right corner?
$10, 12 points.
Just remember you said that. It's going to be 1 point.
1 point.
If you count the captured black stone, it's going to be 1 point. And I'm going to be able to explain why it works too.
I hope so.
Yeah. And so white plays away again. And still the issue is that black does not have enough ko-threats to fight the ko. So black answers once more. And then white finally finishes off the ko situation on the right. And so we're running out of endgame moves. Like the whole lower side of the board is finished. There's a little endgame left on the left side, I suppose. But for the time being, the biggest move is in the upper right. So black has to play to stop white from cutting off that 1 black stone. So that's what this move is. Black is stopping white from playing at A to capture that black stone. So like if black had played something like this, we wouldn't have that story that I'm going to be talking about in the upper right corner. Black could play like this to protect the upper right corner, and then it would be something like 10 points. But then white would play here. This would be actually a bigger win for white. White would win by more than a half point. So this is not good enough for black. So black plays here. So this is stopping white to play at A. And although white did not do it, if white plays here, we can assume that black is planning to play here. So that's the idea. So this is where a really crazy move comes up. So where would you play if you were playing with white in the upper right corner?
I mean, was it Q18 looks tricky.
You're right. That was very sharp of you to find that move. Q18 is a tricky move.
I don't know. I haven't read it, but I mean, it looks.
White would like to combine this Atari here with the push here to capture 4 stones, but that's just not good enough because black doesn't answer the Atari. This would be a very minor gain for white, and this would be a big win for black. This would be a reasonably win.
Sure.
So white tries to find a way to make the Atari forcing, and the way to do that is to start with this. So basically, if black, let's try some moves. If black plays this way, then you might think, oh, now it's Atari Sente, right? But this would be a mistake because then black would connect underneath.
Oh, very clever.
But actually, white can play this way, starting with this move. So if white plays this attachment,
I see. Yeah.
Black plays here. White starts with this move.
Yeah.
If black plays here, then white's going to cut.
Yeah, of course.
That's a collapse for black.
That is a total collapse for black.
So we do have this would be a big win for white. If black earlier, if white had played the Atari already, then black would be able to play here.
Right.
Now black is behind in liberty, so white's going to capture those stones anyway. Another big win. So going back to the game, it's a big problem for black when white plays here. Like we tried that move.
Yeah.
We could try that move too. And again, if white plays here, it's still not going to be good enough. This is still going to be a win for black, whichever way white does it, like even this way. It's still not good enough. But white pushes through immediately. And it's the same story.
That works.
Because if black pushes through, it's an Atari, and this time white's going to be able to cut black off by capturing the two stones.
That's right. Yeah.
So black pushes through once, but again, it's the same story now. Whatever black does, black's going to have trouble with that push at 017. So black has to connect here. What I'm talking about is black plays here, white's going to push through here.
Right.
The same thing if black plays here, white plays the Atari first now and then can cut here.
Oh, that's really sweet.
And so if black plays instead here, then again white would let's
push,
see what
I think. Push.
White would just play the ko in this case, I guess.
Oh, hey, that would work too.
Yeah. Okay,
Sure.
So what black does is black connects, and white plays the ko. And I've been talking about how white has a lot of ko threats, and we're going to see it happen. Ko threats, right, lower left. And this throw-in is the 1 point that white gets in the corner. So that's why I was saying that black has only 1 point, because I'm subtracting that stone that black just threw in. This stone here that black threw in is actually a test that you find in symmetrical problems, life and death problems. It's a way for black to make a life in the corner. So this is a very important move that black played. And it's the only way black can save his group. So it's really exciting to see. Black has to play very sharply here to even save the day, because it's a very serious ko. And this peep here on the left side is a forcing move, because white can cut there on the first line to save the group. So black answers here, and white takes. And strictly speaking, was slightly better for black to answer this way. But like that's a fraction of a point, and it didn't change the end result anyway. So I sort of ignored that in this, yeah. And now black attaches. And this is a point where you can sort of have a hallucination. In the game, white connected and black connected. And we can see black is squeezing white, and black's going to have two eyes in the corner. So that's what's going to happen. This is a point where you sort of hallucinate with white, and you think that white can cut here and make it another big ko.
Right, I was looking at that.
Yeah, because if black connects and white just plays Atari, this is going to be a big ko. I just told you white has a lot of ko threats, so why not? The why not is that black can play here, and this is a double ko. It's not a ko.
Oh. Yeah, it doesn't work.
It's a double ko, and black's going to connect up. And this is going to be a win for black, actually. I actually looked at the end game. It's a lot of black territory there. So so white backs off. So it's a really neat position there where black managed to save the whole group.
That's really amazing, but it cost him. Now you're right. He's on to no points.
So now we're finally in an end game. All the fighting is. I can assure you that is, except they're going to fight a ko on the lower side, or well, they stopped fighting it in the middle of the ko. But at last, it's looking like an end game position, and white's going to win by a fourth of a stone.
Good God.
To finish it off, black plays this move. This is good because black's making ko threats for the ko on the lower side. We have to remember there's a big ko that's waiting to happen on the lower side, and white starts the ko with this. And at this point, there's really three endgame points. There's let's mark this one too. There's A, B, and C.
A, B, and C, yeah.
And A and B are both what we would call fourth points.
Yeah.
They make a difference of 4 points. And C is slightly smaller than that. And so this is a position where now it looks like maybe black can win the ko, because black has some ko threats in the upper left. But white has enough ko threats to probably be able to play both A and B, and that's going to be good enough for white. So I think I made a variation where black plays the cut here, and white continues the ko. And this ko threat is borderline. It's going to lead to another very, very close game. But it looks like white could probably win either way, maybe. But I'm going to have white capture. And eventually, white runs out of ko threats. And black is also running out of ko threats. Like this move here is not going to be big enough. Oh, I don't want to use that marker. I'll use this marker. This is not going to be big enough for the ko on the lower side. Black does have a big ko threat here. But white also has a ko threat here. So it's getting pretty close. So when white plays this move, it's about time for black to finish the ko. So we're going to have black finish the ko.
9 points, I think, right?
Yeah. It's 10 points.
10 points.
And so white gets to play both of these moves here, and we end this way. So we're going to end. I'm going to take it to the finish. It's just a few moves now.
Yeah, absolutely. Come this far, we're not.
And yeah, so that would finish the game, and it's a fourth of a stone for white.
Wow.
And I forget what it is in Japanese rules, but it's either a half point or 1.5 points.
So
but of course, this game is.
Yeah, I mean, we called it a half-point game, but I mean, what's interesting is that you had called it, at the breaking point as being, looking. It was very difficult. You ran out some really complicated.
That would take me back to move 112, where we started the second video.
Right. And you had talked about you looked a lot at the end game from that point, assuming that it was going to be. The end game was going to start, and you said it was really, really complicated and hard to tell.
It looked like a half point.
Yeah.
It looked like a half point.
So you were right.
Well, I was. Yeah. It was a half point. It was a very different half point at this point.
It was.
And then at this point, it's more like it's still a half point, but all sorts of stuff has happened. It's a completely different game. I wouldn't be able to recognize it. Like the only parts of the game that still resemble what it was like before, it's maybe the upper left and the lower right corner positions.
So I know we're wrapping up here, but I guess you spent a lot of time with this game. We spent 2 entire videos on it. And first of all, thanks to you and thanks to everybody for hanging in for this amazing game 10. But it seems to me to sort of be an uber kind of AlphaGo game. I mean, we kind of see all of the things that you've been showing us in these AlphaGo games. I mean, halfway through, it's a half-point game. They could just go straight into endgame, but it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So, thoughts, conclusions, observations?
Well, I don't really know firsthand how correct AlphaGo is in its evaluations of that position. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it has a fairly good idea of how close the game is at this point. And but I sort of doubt that it would be able to sort of brute force work out the whole end game. So I'd really like to sort of have a conversation with AlphaGo and try to figure out what it's looking at in actual variations and evaluations, because I don't think it doesn't work the same way as human beings do. And so it's not saying, wait, wow, this is a close game. It's more like it's looking at somehow evaluating the situation in a different way. And with white, apparently in this case, it didn't think it was good enough to play the normal endgame. And then it got into all these complicated variations in the center. And it was really a headache for me because I'm only showing you like something like a tenth of the variations I went into.
Right.
And a lot of them just were not working. That's why they're not being shown. But
So,
there's a lot of, yeah.
No, I think, I mean, if correct me if I'm wrong, but I think another way to say that is that, there's a fair amount of pretty risky play, right? I mean, you found lots and lots of collapses for both sides.
Yes, and for the most part, there's that move that I was suggesting that Black should have played to win the game.
Right.
But apart from that, I'm not really finding anything that I would call a mistake. Like the way AlphaGo is handling these positions, when I go into the details and try to work them out, it turns out AlphaGo is playing the best moves in these fights for life and death, and it's this game really shows the strong part of AlphaGo's game. And I would actually say that the middle game and this infighting in the center of the board is probably AlphaGo's strongest point.
It is really phenomenal just to see all of those things. As somebody who really enjoys playing complicated, I like complicated games. Simple games bore me. It's a lot of stuff straight is what's going on. And I guess sort of my last question before we wrap up is, what do you think that we human players can learn? I mean, what are the applications for us?
Well, I'm sort of doubtful of the opening, but the way AlphaGo is, I'm not. What I want to say really is that AlphaGo doesn't have the idea of playing a perfect game. Mm-hmm. It's playing moves that look reasonably good to it. Mm-hmm. And in that, it has a lot of moves that it could play instead. Right. It's not as if it has only one correct road to go down.
Right.
And so, in a way, I think we shouldn't really be taking these 3-3 invasions and stuff and some of the stuff it's doing in the opening. I don't think we really have to take that so seriously, because AlphaGo is probably going to change its mind they're still developing it. Although DeepMind has said that they have retired AlphaGo. I think that just means that they're not playing any exhibition games.
Competitive games, yeah, right.
But they are developing AlphaGo, and they've said that publicly. So I think it's okay for me to say that. And so just in a version up, as they move into different reincarnations of AlphaGo, it changes its mind about some of these things it does in the opening. And so I don't really take the opening moves so seriously. Like, there's moves that I would be happy to play with and try to figure out. But it's not as if I feel that I have to copy what AlphaGo did.
Right.
But when studying the middle game, I think studying the middle game is very valuable for me as a player, and that it's forcing me to do a lot more reading than I'm accustomed to. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's a very good way to hone my reading skill. It's giving me that. So I think it's a good way for amateur players also to maybe get a feel of what a close game is, because a lot of AlphaGo's games are very close throughout the game, and especially in the middle game to the end game, they're usually very close. And a game that is a big difference is usually the exception. And so just looking at these games that are all very close, it should give a player a feel of what a close game is, because I think a lot of amateur players are playing games that are a bit further, a bigger difference, a bigger margin most of the time. And getting a feel for what a close game is going to sort of give you a feel of what the correct move might be. Mm-hmm. Because usually it's bad to be greedy and try to win by a lot. Usually you should assume that if your opponent plays correctly, it's going to be a close game. Mm-hmm. And so when you start out with a variation where you think you're going to win by a great margin in the beginning of the game, then usually you're deceiving yourself. And so to get a feeling of what a close game is probably something that anyone can profit from.
Absolutely. Very, very good lesson. So, all right, we're going to wrap up a couple things. First of all, a huge thanks, and personally, but for all of the folks out there who we've been getting just a lot of appreciation for your hard work on these, Michael. So you should know that people really appreciate it, and we're sort of at an interesting point here. We're just finishing up our 10th game, so it's a nice reflection point. But each game has been not only a masterpiece of a game, but your commentary. So I want to say appreciation for that. And I want to thank everybody who's been watching these, and I know looking forward to them on Fridays. We really appreciate that. Big shout out to Babs Wanek, our producer, who's been keeping us on schedule and on the straight and narrow. Thank you, Babs. And of course, Andrew Jackson, who's been doing a lot of work on these as well, who came up. If people want to know who did that very terrific opening, which I love every time, that was Andrew Jackson. Came up with that. Really good work on that. And before we start into the next batch of games, we're going to take a little bit of a moment to look at a lot of people have had a lot of some sort of general questions, but also some things that are specifically worth responding to in some of the various games. I think for this first Q&A, we're probably just going to look at the last batch of games. So we may do a couple of Q&As. So we'll have that out soon, and then we'll be on to more of these.
There's going to be some more games like this, sort of. It's not the only one. Like I think up to this point, game number 2, where there was this. It was a pretty amazing game too.
I know 2 was good, but after this game 10, I mean 2 was kind of like a walk in the park,
Well, there's going to be more.
Good.
Maybe not in the next few games, which are a bit more what I would call normal, but there's more exciting games coming up.
Well, I'm sure that like all of our viewers, I wait with bated breath, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Michael Redmond. Thanks again to all of you for watching, and we will see you next week.